Thank you for staying with us as KMBC 9 News at 6 continues. Our Commitment 2024 election coverage begins now. Primary day is just hours away, and we're getting you prepared to hit the polls. Voters will decide several key races tomorrow in Kansas, including some heated congressional battles in House Districts 1, 2, and 3. There are also a number of county contests, including the race for Johnson County prosecutor and sheriff. On the Missouri side, voters will choose their party's nominees for governor, attorney general, secretary of state, Congress, and a U.S. Senate seat. They'll also weigh in on the Jackson County prosecutor's race and the KCPD funding bill. There's a lot to cover. For weeks now, KMBC 9's Heart of the Matter has been speaking to the candidates and getting to important issues. You'll decide Tuesday. Host and moderator Cody Holyoke is here to walk us through the races so you're informed before you go to the ballot box. Cody?
Well, Laura, let's start with the top of the ticket in Missouri, the race for governor. I sat down with all the top contenders. Let's begin on the Democratic side. 5 candidates want to earn your vote in the primaries. The fight right now, though, is really between 2 of them, and they're both from Springfield. Businessman and fast food CEO Mike Hamra and House Minority Leader Crystal Quade. Quade spent some time as a congressional staffer before voters elected her to the Missouri House in 2016. She's now termed out and can't run again. Quade has had an uphill battle in Jeff City as minority leader, working to take on Republicans in an effort to improve gun control and restore abortion rights. In fact, she tells me protecting reproductive rights is one of her top priorities as governor. And the constitutional amendment reversing the state's abortion ban is top of mind. Quade says if voters pass the measure in November, she'd fight to protect those rights from a historically Republican-run General Assembly.
As the only woman and only mother in this race, obviously this is deeply personal for me. And yes, I've been in Jefferson City as they have continued to go after reproductive health care, and not just in abortion. We're hearing senators talk about IVF right now and how they don't think that that should be legally allowed. And so as governor, I will do everything in my power to uphold the will of voters, which we know in November they're going to overturn this draconian ban and give rights back to the citizens of Missouri. And so we'll make sure that the people's voices are heard.
Quade's top opponent in the primary, Mike Hamra, also wants to restore reproductive rights. He's a businessman who grew up in Springfield as well. His company owns close to 200 restaurants across the country. Hamra is a newcomer to politics, having never held elected office before. That is different from all the other candidates running for governor. Hamra points to the issues in Jeff City getting any legislation through the General Assembly. He tells me he believes a fresh viewpoint is needed to get things done.
For the last 22 years, I have brought people together to solve problems, to confront challenges, and I'm relentless about it. And I know that I'll do that same thing as governor. And if there is stonewalling, you know, the legislators decide, or there's people in the legislative body that decide to stonewall efforts to try to make progress in the state, then we'll bring those initiatives to the voters. We'll bring it back to the voters and let them make those decisions.
Quade, meanwhile, points to her years of experience in the General Assembly as a way to work across the aisle. She tells me she's confident Missouri voters will elect new leaders in November and get rid of the Republican supermajorities in the House and Senate. Time will tell. You know, gridlock isn't a new concept in Jeff City. For years, Republican infighting has led to record-long filibusters and failed votes, especially in the state Senate. We're going to get to that in a moment. First, let's look at the Republican side of the governor's race. We have a full slate of candidates fighting to become the nominee. Look at all these people. But polling shows there are really 3 top candidates in this race. Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe and Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft are neck and neck, followed by State Senator Bill Eigel in third. Let's start with Lieutenant Governor Kehoe, who's certainly no stranger to politics. The North St. Louis native spent 7.5 years in the state Senate, eventually becoming majority leader. Governor Parson made him lieutenant governor in 2018, and voters elected him to the job 2 years later. Kehoe, while still touting conservative values, has really been trying to position himself as more level-headed than his opponents. He's called out the heated rhetoric on the airwaves, and he's pointed to his experience working with others at the state capitol. He tells me if elected, he won't govern through chaos.
You know, unfortunately, it's the tone that politics have gotten to, but I think it also demonstrates the difference between me and some of the other candidates in the race. They really want to govern by chaos and by screaming and hollering and yelling. And certainly that's one way to communicate with folks, but I'm a relationship person. I'm going to work with people to get a conservative solution to the problems Missouri faces, but we're not going to do it through chaotic measures.
Now, the polls show Kehoe's main challenger is Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft. Ashcroft grew up in Jeff City, of course, born into a political family, right? His dad, John, was governor in the 80s and 90s, eventually becoming U.S. Attorney General. Voters elected Jay Secretary of State twice in 2016 and 2020. Like his opponents, he wants to get rid of the state income tax. His plan would cut off billions of dollars of revenue coming into the state every year and would involve a complete restructuring of government funding.
We don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. Roads, bridges, inland waterways, education, and public safety are core responsibilities of government. Our general revenue should be going to that before we're just raising taxes willy-nilly on the people.
Ashcroft believes his phase out of income taxes would take 6 to 8 years. Again, it should be noted all three Republicans, Jay Ashcroft, Mike Kehoe, and Bill Eigel, want to abolish the state income tax. Senator Eigel also wants to get rid of the personal property tax you'd pay on things like cars and trucks. That's a cornerstone of his campaign. He lives in Weldon Spring, Missouri. Voters elected him to the state Senate in 2016, where he's now a member of the controversial Freedom Caucus, criticized by leaders of his own party for causing gridlock in Jeff City. He's also caught quite a bit of flack in this election for his controversial campaign ads. One ad shows him with a Spanish interpreter, ending the ad with phrases from a Speedy Gonzales cartoon. Critics say it's racist and insensitive to the Latino community. They're also worried about his promise to try and deport all undocumented immigrants day one if elected. I asked him how exactly that would work.
We're going to be able to activate the Highway Patrol, the National Guard, every sheriff in every county of the state to detain people that are suspected of being here illegally and deport them out of the state.
I think that's the part, though. How do you suspect them of being here illegally and not group in people who are here legally and just happen to not be white?
Well, we first of all, we have officers across the state every single day that go after folks that are suspected of committing a crime. And I'm confident that we have some of the best law enforcement in the nation.
Now, critics are concerned this plan would lead to racial profiling. Both Ashcroft and Kehoe have strict immigration stances, and they've spent much of their campaigns criticizing President Biden's handling of issues at the southern border. Let's discuss the candidates with KMBC9 political reporter Michael Mahoney. Mahoney, we know all three Republicans work very hard to get the personal endorsement of former President Trump. Thing is, they all have it, right? He gave a blanket endorsement and said, pick one, you can't go wrong. Well, now they're all out with ads saying they're the Trump-backed candidate, but again, they all are. So what effect does that have on the race?
Well, it's basically meaningless at this point. I also think that it probably is disrespectful to the Missouri Republican primary voter. Trump's very popular in the state. He won it by 15 points 4 years ago. If Republican primary voters were looking for Trump's guidance in the governor's primary, well, then he let them down. And the same holds true for the Republican primary for Attorney General between Andrew Bailey and Will Scharf. Trump endorsed both of those men. Now, over in the 3rd Congressional District, however, Trump did endorse the former state senator Bob Onder over Kurt Schaefer in that race for Congress. That's in central and eastern Missouri. And that could be helping Onder's campaign.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Now, pushing past the primary, it should be noted, Missouri voters haven't elected a Democrat as governor in more than a decade. So what would it take for one to win?
Pretty much a perfect campaign on behalf of the Democrats to make this happen. They would probably also need a major break or two by whichever the Republican candidates that win the nomination that's on the line on Tuesday. Now, at first it appeared that Crystal Quade, the House Minority Leader, had a pretty clear path to the nomination. Quade's got a good reputation in the Missouri House, as Cody said just a few minutes ago, for working well with the supermajority Republicans. Now, that changed, however, when businessman Mike Hammer got into this Democratic governor's nominating race. Hammer and Quade don't differ that much on policy. Hammer, however, has spent over $2 million on ads to buy the name identification that a candidate needs to be competitive, and that has got him into the thick of this race. And there's one other thing. This could be a turning point in Missouri politics. Republicans have two very conservative candidates running in this race, Jay Ashcroft and Bill Eigel, and then a more mainstream conservative in Mike Kehoe. Plus, we've got two standard Missouri Democrats on the other side of the ballot. And so this is the kind of race that could decide the state's direction for the next decade or more.
Yeah, certainly a lot of implications here. We'll be watching closely. Mahoney, thank you. We have much more with each of the top candidates for Missouri governor. You can watch our full episodes on the race and my full interviews right now at KMBC.com. Just click the Heart of the Matter tab. Laura?
Our Commitment 2024 coverage continues next with a look at more races in Missouri. Meet the candidates fighting to become the state's next Attorney General. And an effort to unseat Missouri Senator Josh Hawley is ramping up. We'll introduce you to the candidates looking to take him on in November. Another heated race involves the primary for Missouri Attorney General. Two Republicans are fighting for the role. Current AG Andrew Bailey wants to be elected to a full term. He's up against former prosecutor and Trump attorney Will Scharf. KMBC 9's Cody Holyoke sat down with both candidates. Cody?
Well, Laura, this race, think about it, is a battle between two people who have not been elected to a post. But Andrew Bailey has the job now. appointed by Governor Parson when Eric Schmidt became U.S. Senator. And he has certainly made headlines these past 19 months, releasing emergency rules and requests affecting transgender care. He's also gone to court against Planned Parenthood, accusing the group of trafficking minors. And he's launched several lawsuits against the Biden administration. Now, Bailey says he stands on his record.
We're going to continue to find new and innovative ways to effectively deploy state resources to assist local efforts at fighting crime. We're going to continue to enhance our Consumer Protection Division. I've been doing the job of the Attorney General for the past 18 months, and my platform is my record. And we fought and won for Missourians, and we'll continue to do so.
Now, Bailey's opponent made waves last month when he kept his grenade launcher ad on the air after both Republicans and Democrats urged politicians to lower the temperature. Will Scharf is a former U.S. prosecutor and is now a personal attorney for former President Donald Trump. He claims that translates into showing that he's ready to be Attorney General in Missouri.
I think I have a demonstrated track record at this point of winning in court. I mean, we've won huge victories for President Trump, including at the U.S. Supreme Court. I want to bring that same sort of attitude, that same degree of excellence to the Missouri Attorney General's office. I think I can win for Missourians in courtrooms both here in Missouri and around the country.
Now, between trading barbs, both Scharf and Bailey have pledged their support of former President Trump. As AG, Bailey even threatened lawsuits against other states like the state of New York for their handling of the Trump trials. He claims that they've tied up Trump in ways that have prevented Missourians from hearing him on the campaign trail.
And we've heard a lot of that in the political ads, certainly. But there are other races that you're paying very close attention to.
Yeah, there's one that's perhaps the most pivotal national race in our backyard, and that is the push for U.S. Senate in Missouri. Incumbent Republican Senator Josh Hawley will work to keep his job for another term. He's running unopposed in the primary. This time around, the action is certainly on the other side of the aisle. Look at this. 4 Democrats want a shot at taking on Hawley in November. Mita Biswas of St. Louis, activist December Harmon from Columbia, attorney and antitrust advocate Lucas Kunce of Independence, and State Senator Karla May of St. Louis. On Heart of the Matter, our roundtable of journalists took a close look at the race. Who's emerging as the viable candidate right now?
It's Kunce's primary nomination to lose at this point. Number one, he ran a very effective primary campaign against Bush Valentine a couple of years ago. In that race, he didn't win it, but he was an effective fundraiser. He's effectively fundraising this time. Money is important in politics, whether you like it or not. And almost everybody expects him to come out of this thing as the Democratic nominee.
Yeah, I mean, a very successful fundraiser. Actually was raising more money than Josh Hawley at some of the earlier stages of the campaign. I don't expect that necessarily to continue as the November election gets closer. But I think Lucas Kunce also has a pretty significant name recognition advantage over his primary Democratic opponent, Karla May. She's a state senator from St. Louis. She's been had a long term of service, been very effective as a Democratic super minority state senator can be. Sure. But she served 8 years in the House. She's now approaching term limits in the Senate. Has a lot of support in St. Louis, but I think Lucas Kunce has the statewide name recognition because of that earlier campaign against Trudy Bush Valentine that I think will probably serve him well in this primary.
We've been watching the polls to see how a general election matchup would play out. This is the latest one from June from Emerson College and the Hill, and it shows Kunce just 9 points down from the incumbent, Senator Hawley, ahead of the primaries, and the gap has closed a bit since February. You can watch our full roundtable discussion on the race right now at KMBC.com. Just click the Heart of the Matter tab. Laura?
Our election coverage continues next with a look at things on the Kansas side. We'll explore the congressional seats up for grabs, including a wide open race affecting voters close to home. Primary season's critical in Kansas, where several key congressional races are taking shape. Now, remember, a couple of years back, the Republican-controlled legislature redrew the state's districts, putting the historically liberal city of Lawrence into the heavily conservative Big First, plus splitting Wyandotte County up, giving part of it to the 2nd Congressional District while adding more rural Republican-leaning areas to the 3rd. Now, Cody Holyoke has been keeping a close eye on how the newer map is affecting elections, Cody.
And honestly, Laura, it didn't do much the last time around. Despite all those changes you just listed, incumbent Congresswoman Sharice Davids handily won the 3rd District again in 2022. She's running unopposed on the Democratic side tomorrow, while Olathe businesswoman Karen Cirkovich and oncologist Dr. Prasanth Reddy are vying for Republican votes. In the Big First District, incumbent Republican Tracy Mann is being challenged by Eric Bloom, who lives in Lawrence, and there's one Democrat on the ballot, Paul Buskirk, also from Lawrence. The big race to watch in Kansas, though, is in the 2nd Congressional District, which includes Leavenworth and Atchison counties, along with parts of Douglas and Wyandotte counties. It is wide open since Republican Congressman Jake LaTurner stepping down. 2 Democrats are running for a spot in November, Nancy Boyda and Matt Kleiman. They join 5 Republicans on the primary ballot. And there are some familiar names here, including former Kansas Attorney General Derek Schmidt, who lost his bid for governor 2 years ago. Our Heart of the Matter Roundtable has been watching this race closely. Mahoney, what's the takeaway right now?
The takeaway right now is that it's not as wide open as some people think, that this is Derek Schmidt's primary to lose. He has got he has name ID in the 90s. A lot of people know him from the gubernatorial campaign, plus the fact that he was the Attorney General for the entire state of Kansas for 8 years. His positive name ID is, I am told, 70% or better. And most of the rest of that field is pretty underfunded, and it's going to be Derek Schmidt's race to lose.
I will say that should something go wrong with Derek Schmidt's campaign, I certainly agree with Michael, it is his race to lose, but there are a couple of other Republican candidates who might get some traction. Jeff Kars is from Wichita, is a Trump administration employee, was a regional administrator. He mentions his work for the Trump administration at every chance he gets, and that is probably his strongest selling point. Also, Sean Tiffany is a name well known, at least to political figures in Kansas, right, because he's been the head of the Kansas Livestock Association. So there are some other candidates, but I agree, Derek Schmidt's name recognition and his experience as the state attorney general is going to be tough to overcome for any of those other candidates.
Again, that's just part of our roundtable conversation. You can watch the full discussion online right now at KNBC.com under the Heart of the Matter tab. Laura?
And next, we've got a final look at the races to watch. Michael Mahoney is back with the races he's keeping an eye on. One issue on the Missouri ballot is something voters have seen before. Cody Holyoke is back with us. You've been watching the KCPD funding for a while now.
Yeah, this is a back and forth that has gone on for years. A local issue that, because of the way KCPD is run by the state, is decided by voters all across Missouri. If passed, Amendment 4 would force the city to boost the minimum amount it spends on police to 1/4 of its general revenue. By the way, that is an amount that the city already exceeds right now. If this amendment sounds familiar, it's because voters already approved it a couple of years ago. But the city sued the state over misleading ballot language and won, so it is back on your ballot. Also of note, Jackson County voters will decide their top picks for county prosecutor because Jean Peters Baker is not running for re-election. Democratic candidates include defense attorney Stephanie Burton, Mayor Lucas's Director of Public Safety, Melissa Johnson, and Assistant Prosecutor John Gromowski. Whoever wins will face Republican Tracy Chappell in November, Laura.
All right, so let's bring in Michael Mahoney. Talk about the prosecutor's race. This is an interesting one.
Well, because it hasn't been in front of the voters for a while here. This is a Democratic primary, as Cody referred to, because Jean Peters Baker has decided not to seek re-election. Now, one of the candidates is Stephanie Burton. She's worked with the Midwest Innocence Project and the Death Penalty Litigation Clinic. She has federal and state trial court experience and has worked on violent crime cases. She wants to expand the diversion programs for drug and mental health cases and supports community policing. John Gromowski has done 2 stints in the Jackson County Prosecutor's Office. He's currently working in the office's Violent Crimes Unit. He was also a defense attorney for 16 years. And he mentions that he wants to improve relations with the local police and prioritize the Conviction Integrity Unit. Melissa Johnson is also a former prosecutor in the office. She is currently Kansas City Mayor Quentin Lucas's Director of Public Safety. She wants more support for the Anti-Drug Office of Combat. She's a former combat commissioner, and she wants to set up a new property crimes division in the office, as well as reduce the number of cases that are dismissed. And the winner of this Democratic primary faces Tracy Chappell in the November election.
All right. So, Cody, KCPD funding. Now this is an interesting question. It keeps coming up. It was passed by voters in 2022. Then it was reversed by a judge, and now it's back on the ballot.
It's back. It's like a bad penny for Kansas City leaders, you know. It stems from that fight, as you said, in 2021. The city tried to move some money for other crime prevention efforts. We've seen those court battles, as you said, going all the way up to the state Supreme Court, which did rule that the language was misleading. So, as you said, it's back on the ballot. Looking at the numbers from 2022, this is interesting. More than 63% of voters statewide passed this then, but it was unpopular closer to home in Kansas City, especially in Jackson County. So it's really going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, it is. And Michael, tell us, what are you watching most closely?
There are several other races of interest that folks should note. Some of them include the Democratic primary for the 7th District seat to the Missouri Senate. That's in the South Kansas City race. It has Democrats Pat Contreras and Patty Lewis in that Democratic primary. The Republican primary for the 11th state Senate seat is in Northeast Kansas City and Independence. That's got David Martin, Aaron McClellan, and Joe Nicola in that race. In Platte County, there is a half-cent sales tax proposal on the ballot for a new jail, and Independence, they are proposing a quarter-cent sales tax to give the raises to their police officers. Laura?
And we want to remind everybody the polls are going to open tomorrow morning at 6 on the Missouri side, 7 on the Kansas side. They both, on both sides of the state line, close at 7 p.m. If you are in line by then, you will be able to vote.
And a reminder, every week, Heart of the Matter offers an in-depth look at the stories that matter to you. This Sunday, we will break down the results of the primaries in Kansas and Missouri, so be sure to tune in. Heart of the Matter airs Sunday at 11 a.m. on KMBC 9.
All right, you guys have been very informative tonight. Thank you. Thank you for joining us at KMBC 9 News at 6. We'll see you for more election coverage at 9 and 10.